Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we are so glad to have you here. President Biden is in New Jersey this weekend, meeting with Governor Phil Murphy. He's hosting a fundraiser for Biden's presidential campaign at his home in Middletown. Dr. Ben Dworkin, director of the Rowan Institute for Public Policy and Citizenship, is standing by to discuss the upcoming election and the role our state plays on the national stage. First, though, we're going to take a look at the impact of the president's economic plans on our state. Ross Connelly is with Americans for Prosperity, a grassroots advocacy organization. Ross, we welcome you to the show. It's so good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
Absolutely. First, so our viewers know, tell us a little bit about Americans for Prosperity and what it is that you do as an organization.
Americans for Prosperity, we're the largest grassroots organization on the right in the nation. And we really focus on empowering Americans with bottom-up solutions. We often see top-down solutions from Washington or Trenton, whether it comes from taxes or big government programs that don't work for the majority of Americans. And we are here to empower folks to make that difference in their communities and to push back on some of those big government policies like Bidenomics, like the president's economic agenda that are harming Americans.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about this weekend. President Biden is here raising money for his reelection. I'm sure the economy is going to be a top issue in November. There are a number of issues, but how important do you see inflation, the cost of living, as impacting voters, especially right here in New Jersey?
It is the number one issue that we hear about. We've been doing events across the country and across New Jersey, focusing on the economic kitchen table issues that every American, every New Jerseyan is talking about. The increased cost at the grocery store or at the gas pump that they're having to deal with and making hard decisions between maybe taking that vacation or not. And having to choose between education and groceries. These are choices that Americans are having to face, and it's solely because of the president's Bidenomics agenda that spent $5.5 trillion in just a couple of years that is driving the inflation that and those high prices that we see at the stores today.
And what do you say when you have Democrats who will say, listen, the economy is strong, unemployment is at 4.4%?
Certainly, there's a disconnect. They often like to talk about how Wall Street is doing well, but Main Street is not doing well. So when when there's that disconnect you talk to the average people, they are very unhappy, and you're seeing this in poll after poll after poll that the president's job approval is at historic lows, and that's solely because of his policies that are displacing the economy. Helping out the well-connected, but leaving the average Joe behind. $11,400 a year is the amount extra that Americans are having to pay because of Bidenomics. And our mission at Americans for Prosperity and Jersey First, our partners in New Jersey, is to get that message out to the masses and connect those policy mistakes that the president has been pushing with the price increases that they're experiencing.
Do you have some solutions that you're offering that you're saying, hey, if you take X, Y, and Z, this could counteract? What can you tell me about some solutions?
Absolutely. On one hand, we are bringing attention to this across the country and across New Jersey, doing Bidenomics events where we're giving inflation relief to Americans and folks in New Jersey, whether that be paying for a meal at a diner or discounting their gas so that they get a little temporary relief, but also having those conversations about the policies. And then we're talking about the solutions. De-inflationary policies like unleashing American energy abundance, something that we had in previous years, but has been just totally constricted by the current administration. Lowering taxes, deregulating industries that are being suffocated by the red tape of the Biden administration and the Murphy administration, I should mention. They're hand in hand in their economic agenda. What we should be doing to help Americans is reducing the amount that of the financial impact that they have to deal with. Increasing taxes in an inflationary period is an absolutely disastrous idea, and both President Biden and Governor Murphy are proposing drastically increasing taxes.
When you're out and about, you're a grassroots organization meeting with some of the voters. Are you seeing mainly Republicans, because you said you're to the right? Are you seeing Democrats come and speak to you as well? Can you tell me a little bit about these conversations that you're having, who they're coming from?
We're talking to everyone. We did an event in just a couple months ago at a diner, and we focused on just giving relief to anyone that was coming into the diner. We rented out the entire place. There were folks elected officials that were of the Republican side, but most of the attendees were folks in the middle. And those are the people we're really trying to talk to, because they're the most influential in moving policies. Once you get those, the average mom involved, they tend to speak up and get more involved. So it is a totally nonpartisan approach. We'll talk to Democrats, we'll talk to independents, we'll talk to Republicans, any of the above, to try to get Washington to correct the direction they're going in. Because at the end of the day, what we're focused on is the well-being of Americans. And that's every American, no matter the party registration. And these policies are hurting them. So we're trying to get the administration, get Congress, and get Trenton on the right track.
Can you talk a little bit more? I want to dive into a little bit more about the types of policies your organization is backing and how it could help people in New Jersey and all over, but specifically New Jersey.
Absolutely. We've been advocating for a few things at the federal level, even over the past couple years with the current makeup of Congress and the administration. Things like doing permitting reform. This is something in the energy sector that isn't just affecting fossil fuel companies trying to build more oil wells or natural gas wells. It's hurting the solar industry as well. They can't get the permits to build the infrastructure needed to provide the energy that will lower costs for the consumer. It's the same thing for the incoming fiscal cliff. This is something that hasn't been talked about much. That's going to be coming after the election. Is the Trump tax cuts from a few years ago are coming up, and that if we let those lapse, it will increase taxes for every single American, no matter what you may have heard. Those tax reductions helped every single American. It reduced taxes, and the proposal from the administration currently is to raise taxes on everyone. So we're very laser focused on that, but also on the spending side. We need to get the reckless spending in Washington under control, because that is what is driving this fiscal cliff that we're facing, and it's what's driving the inflation that folks are experiencing at stores across the country.
Spending, why is that so hard to correct? Because everybody will go out there and they will be campaigning on, I'm going to make your life better. I'm going to make tax affordability in New Jersey it is a perennial issue, yet nothing ever seems to get done on both sides, quite honestly.
Spending more money is easy politics, and that it's unfortunate, and it's on both sides. I will say it's on both sides of the aisle. There have been spending issues, whether it's a Republican administration or a Democratic administration. It just depends on what spending problems you want to focus on. But it's the biggest problem facing our country. We are now over $33 trillion in debt. That is completely unsustainable. And at some point, the folks are going to come for their bill. And Americans and members of Congress, and even at the state level, they need to make hard decisions and find ways to empower and have a pro-growth agenda instead of focusing on having government be the solution to all of our problems. That is what got us in this mess. Instead, we should find ways for the private sector to grow at a rate where where we're not having to spend enormous amounts of money. There's a lot of problems, a lot of spending issues you can go through in Washington, certainly. But we're just saying the spending needs to be reined in. We do have solutions to that if you go to americansforprosperity.org. But just in general, reining in that overspending is going to be the key issue for Congress and Washington over the next few years.
Do you feel hopeful that the tide will start to turn and things will become a little bit more affordable, because it's not sustainable?
I'm the eternal optimist. I always have faith in the American people to solve difficult problems. We've solved plenty of difficult problems in the past, and it's really just communicating with the American people what problems we face and the solutions that we need to implement to get there. And I think we're gonna see that over the next few years, no matter what the makeup of Congress will be. Is hopefully the two parties coming together and finding solutions that may not be the most politically advantageous. Cutting spending is never a politically advantageous thing to do, but it's the right thing to do for the future of the country, because we cannot continue to kick the can down the road and indebt future generations in this unsustainable system that we have now.
Ross Connelly, Americans for Prosperity, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me.
Joining me now is Dr. Ben Dworkin, Director of Rowan Institute for Public Policy and Citizenship. Ben Dworkin, welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Oh, it's good to be back, Laura. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure. We are talking about the election first, now that the primary is behind us. One of the big stories is Senator Bob Menendez. He's jumped into the race as an independent, despite being at the center of a federal bribery trial. So let's talk a little bit first about the bribery trial, where we are at this moment.
This trial is taking a number of weeks, and we are several weeks away from it being resolved. Right now, the prosecution still has a number of witnesses that they need to pull together and put on the stand, and then the defense will have its case. So we're a while before this whole thing will really get to a jury, and then we'll have to see how long they take. Remember 6 years ago when Bob Menendez was previously on trial for federal corruption charges, it ended up in a hung jury. So we're not sure how this is all going to play out. The government is still trying to make its case. In terms of the actual election for the United States Senate seat, right now you have three people. Bob Menendez, as you mentioned, is running as an independent. Andy Kim has won the nomination to be the Democrat in the race. He's a congressman from New Jersey's 3rd congressional district. And Curtis Bashaw, a developer, an activist who has been involved in Republican circles for a number of years, is running as the Republican. In a presidential year, what we see in New Jersey elections are that the number of Democrats really increases. And there are a lot more registered Democrats than registered Republicans in New Jersey, almost 1 million more registered Democrats than registered Republicans. In presidential years, when we see 70 to 75% turnout, that kind of numerical advantage really takes hold. And so I think most people are looking at this as, at this point, a safe Democratic seat, which means Andy Kim is considered the presumptive favorite to win the overall election and become New Jersey's next United States Senator.
Let's say that Menendez is found not guilty. How do you think that could play into the election? Could he be a spoiler? Could he take away from Andy Kim, even though he's an independent? He's a Democrat. Again, because no one knows what's going to happen in that jury room. Nobody knows. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure that there's certainly not a path to victory for Bob Menendez as an independent, and whether he'll be a spoiler really depends on the margin between Andy Kim and Curtis Bashaw. Right now, again, because it's a presidential year when turnout is so much higher, it's difficult for a Republican to keep it close enough so that a spoiler like Menendez could actually have an effect. So, yes, if we normally would have expected a generic Democrat in New Jersey beating a generic Republican in a presidential year election for the United States Senate, you might assume the Democrat's going to win by 12 points or so. Could Bob Menendez make that a little bit smaller? Maybe, but that's so he wins by 8 points. I'm not sure it's going to have much of an impact in the end on who wins.
Yeah, and do you think, as far as the Republicans go, Curtis Bashaw won the Republican primary. He was going up against Christine Serrano-Glassner, mayor of Mendham, and she had President Donald Trump's endorsement. And normally, when you're running as a Republican in New Jersey, you run a little to the right in the primary and a little more centrist in the general election. But in this case, where sides tend to be divided even more. Do you think that Curtis is going to stay in that more center lane, or could he shift a little bit more towards the right, kind of rallying behind that Trump support, trying to get those voters in the state? Because, when Trump was in the state, I think it was, earlier this summer, last spring, there was a massive, huge crowd that turned out. So how do you see him kind of running his campaign as far as his messaging goes?
Well, I think the challenge for Curtis Bashaw is to separate himself from Trump, at the same time trying to take in all of Trump's supporters. What we have is it's going to be a difficult situation. It's why nobody expects this state to vote red in the terms of the presidential contest. Curtis Bashaw the Democrats are going to make every effort to try and tie the Republican to the Republican. Curtis Bashaw, who might say, hey, I'm a different kind of Republican, but that's going to be hard when people are out there, when it's going to be a big Democratic wave year. People in this state overwhelmingly reject Donald Trump. It's not Alabama, and there would be a very different situation, but it's New Jersey. And I think the fact that Bashaw won is testament to the fact that the Trump forces are not strong enough at this point in New Jersey to really make that difference. But the Democrats are going to message trying to tie Bashaw to the larger Republican effort in the country, and that is perceived by a lot of New Jersey voters as being a negative.
Right. And also, when you look at the history of New Jersey when it comes to the U.S. Senate, we haven't elected a Republican to the U.S. Senate since the 70s. It's been 50 years since a Republican was elected. So he has that
1972, right?
1972,
you have to go back to
right.
1972.
So he's got that going against him. And, we've had other really strong candidates with higher name recognition as well. Not everybody knows. Really, this is his first attempt at running for public office or at statewide office, whereas in other times we've had Bob Franks, we've had Millicent Fenwick. We had some well-known names running before, so that he also has that to overcome as well. Name recognition, money that it costs to run.
And that's the key. The money is the key. Now, money doesn't determine everything. We've seen people spend lots of money and still lose, but it helps. And in a place like New Jersey, where if you want everybody from Cape May up to Mahwah to know who you are, to know your message, you need to put your commercials, TV commercials, on network television out of Philadelphia and network television out of New York. These are the fourth and first most expensive media markets in the country. So it's costing you $1 million a week just to be out there, and you have to do that week after week. So whether Bashaw, who has his own personal resources, is able to generate that kind of funding for his campaign remains to be seen, but that'll be critical to everybody knowing who this guy is.
Yeah, well, on the topic of money, President Biden is in New Jersey this weekend where Governor Murphy is hosting a fundraiser at his Middletown home. So can you talk a little bit about what role does Governor Murphy play on the national stage, helping Joe Biden raise money as well? What do you make of that role?
Well, we should understand it. Like a presidential campaign is a billion-dollar enterprise that you have to raise tremendous resources through all different kinds of accounts in order to be able to compete around the country, especially in those critical 6 or 7 battleground states. New Jersey is not one of those states. And that's why there are those who will say New Jersey is an ATM. People come here to raise money because they're not worried about New Jersey the way they are about Pennsylvania. These candidates want to be campaigning Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Michigan, etc. So the fact that Governor Murphy has a prominent role in fundraising for the president, I think, of his own party, is not surprising. Governor Murphy has long been, that's how he got started, by raising money for Democrats. He was finance chair for the Democratic National Committee under Barack Obama, which then propelled him into a further world of public service. And he has had 2 stints as the head of the Democratic Governors Association, which means he's in charge of trying to elect Democratic governors around the country, also requiring fundraising prowess. So the fact that the president is trying to take advantage of his friendship with Governor Murphy and trying to take advantage of Governor Murphy's ability to raise a lot of money is not surprising, but I'm not sure we're really going to see Joe Biden campaigning and doing a rally in New Jersey anytime soon.
Well, what about Governor Murphy? You know, he's a lame duck governor, halfway through his 2nd term. He can't run again. Do you see him perhaps potentially, if Joe Biden is to win a 2nd term, do you think that Phil Murphy could be having some other aspirations to move his career along, perhaps in the Biden administration? Have you? What do you think about that?
In a world where we have candidates who are, in their late 70s and early 80s, there's plenty of time for Governor Murphy to continue a political career if that's what he wants. He could go. He has been ambassador in the past. That's the kind of thing he could do again. He might be asked to run a department, but all of this is really conjecture. We don't even know if Joe Biden's going to win this election at this point. So I think, yes, there is a potential for Phil Murphy having an additional career in politics even after his term is done as governor, but we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out.
Right, but we're always talking about the next thing in New Jersey, and even, the race for governor. I mean, it is still more than a year away, but we have a lot of people in. Recently, saw Sean Spiller from the former head of NJEA. We've got radio host Bill Spadia. He's jumping in. A lot of viable candidates. It's an open primary, so nobody on the Republican side or Democratic side, no incumbent. So, what do you think that these candidates need to do? I know we're still, we're early, but what do they need to do to kind of stand out in the primary?
Well, obviously, name recognition, all of these candidates on both sides of the aisle have a base, but they need to expand that base if they want to win. Now, one of the really interesting dynamics that's going on right now is that the line, which is the ability of a county party organization to give preferred ballot position to their endorsed candidates, that has been ruled unconstitutional just for the Democrats. Now, the reason the Republicans weren't ruled unconstitutional because they too used the line was because they weren't part of the initial lawsuit. We largely assume that it will be filed, a lawsuit on the Republican side will be filed, and the Republicans will not have the line, just like the Democrats no longer have the line. When you don't have the line, the strong Democratic counties in Camden, Middlesex, Essex County, Union County, Bergen County, Passaic, these areas that produce a bulk of the Democratic vote in a primary, they can no longer give that favored status to a particular candidate. And this upends everything. Because when you've got 5, 6 people, like on the Democratic side, potentially running for governor, somebody might be able to win with just 20% of the vote.
Right.
And without a line, it's going to be much more open and much more of a free-for-all. We assume that'll happen on the Republican side too, but there again, when you've got people like Jack Ciattarelli and John Bramnick and Bill Spadea representing different ideas of what it means to be a Republican in New Jersey, these folks, when there's no county preference allowed on the ballot, that's going to make for a much more wide open competition.
Yeah, and too bad we're running out of time because we couldn't even talk about the recent indictment of George Norcross, the most powerful Democratic boss in New Jersey, who was just indicted, and that role. But we're going to have to save that for another time. Dr. Ben Dworkin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Always a pleasure, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.